Explore the Esplanade with me and Renjie as we uncover how this iconic structure blends innovation with tradition.
So the last time I mentioned Durian in the middle of Marina Bay, I think I confused a lot of people.
Yeah.
But when you think about iconic architecture in Marina Bay, you think about the old Fullerton Hotel, which used to be our old post office. You think about Marina Bay Sands. You think about the Art Science Museum.
Yes.
But you must have seen this other building that's like spiky and looks like a durian.
Yeah. So it's like, looks like a durian, but not many people may have seen a durian, right? Like,
That's true, yes.
I think it's spiky on the exterior,
Yes.
right? But I don't think anyone watching this video knows what happens inside of it.
Correct.
Right? So this is called the Esplanade.
Yes. So it's called Esplanade Theatres by the Bay. And the
Okay.
name kind of reveals what it's meant to be. So it's actually two domes, and they're covered by these sort of triangular, spiky shields, I guess, panels,
Okay.
all over, right? So it looks spiky and thorny like a durian, which is what we call it. But inside, there are actually two different spaces that it's a cultural space, right? So right in the middle of Marina Bay, you have essentially a huge performing arts space for theatre plays, for performances. You also have musical performing theatre, right? So that's where the orchestra plays, for instance, where you have like concerts and musical performances and so on. What's really interesting about this space is because there's such huge spaces, the theatres inside don't take up all of the spaces. So there's a lot of shops inside, there's a lot of sort of different nooks and crannies, and all of these different spaces have been activated for different types of art installations, performing arts, and so on. So when you go into the main concourse of this place, right on the middle of, again, the Marina Bay, right? There's a lovely concourse where every month or every month and a half, they have rotating installations, like art installations, and these are larger than life, right? So they stretch all the way from the ceiling to the floor, and it's a sprawling space, so it's always really beautiful. That's also oftentimes where you have performances on the weekends that are free, and I think that's what's lovely about this space, is that every time you go
So
there,
no one has to pay anything.
there are programs that you pay for. So these are the theatre performances. These are like concerts, for instance. You know, your favorite pop star comes into town, they're performing there, or like indie music bands playing there. But you also do have these outside spaces where you have local bands playing. Sometimes you have folk musician groups playing, you know, whether it's across Southeast Asia or even South Asian groups playing. And then outside, right on the waterfront, right literally where the water is, there's an outdoor performing theatre, almost like an amphitheatre. So there are places where you can sit. And again, that's where you have really cool local bands playing, like indie performances that happen on the weekends that really attracts a huge crowd, right? And it's really one of those places that if you're already there, it's really a great way to just sit and, you know, with the entire Singapore skyline glittering behind, listen to a nice set performed by someone.
How do I find out about who's performing? What are the art installations there? Like, is there a website?
So there is a website, but as with many things these days, I always find the most updated information for any place, any attraction, or any, you know, institution to be Instagram. It's just the easiest way, and they're very diligent about their Instagram updates as well. So yeah, many different spaces. The other cool thing that not many people know about, even Singaporeans don't necessarily know about, is it's a beautiful structure, but there are spaces on the rooftop that you can go to. So if you take the escalators and you just keep going up, past the shops, past the art galleries, past the, you know, exhibition spaces, you eventually end up at the rooftop. And it's this beautiful landscape rooftop park that oftentimes a lot of, like, especially today, you see people, you know, whatever, filming their TikTok dances there. But apart from it being such a lovely landscape space, you also get one of the best views of the Marina Bay, you know, the most iconic part of town in Singapore. You see it from this angle. And it's so special because from where it's positioned, right, which is the lifeblood, I think, of Singapore, and historically, you know, where we begin as a city. So I think that's a really cool space. You know, even if it's just to go up there, hang out, take a couple of photos, it's just such a great and unique way to see a space that, honestly, everyone who goes to Singapore goes to the Marina Bay, right? So this is a great new angle to see it.
The way I look at it, right, like, is everyone talks about going to the rooftop of the Marina Bay Sands,
Yes.
right? And the view that you get is of Singapore.
Yeah.
But not many people know how to see all of Marina Bay in a good way. So I'm glad that you
Correct.
mentioned it, because the rooftop of this esplanade that we are talking about is something that not many people would know of.
Yeah.
Right? You mentioned that from the rooftop you see the mouth of the Singapore River.
Yeah.
And I often feel that the Singapore River is quite underrated.
Yeah.
Right? So next
Yeah.
time, let's talk about the Singapore River.
Yeah, that sounds good. Like I said, lifeblood of Singapore as a city.
That's a good phrase to use
Yeah.
to get our listeners excited
Yeah.
of this particular thing about Singapore that you see everywhere, but you don't really notice it. So let's talk about that, the lifeblood of Singapore as a city.
Sounds good.
Awesome.